Hi, my name is Sonia Pena, and this is my case study over AEP 880, Module 7. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about who the characters are and what's happening in this scenario that we were given with the teacher and the Pham family. The main characters are Mr. Rolnick, who is the teacher, Joel, who is the student, and his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Pham, and Mrs. Smith, who is a co-teacher at the school. The situation is Mr. Rolnick is a teacher who believes that family involvement is very important in the success of his students. However, he cannot seem to get Joel's parents involved in anything going on at school. No matter how many times he's reached out, the parents just aren't volunteering to come in for anything. The problem occurring is that Joel would like to work with another student on a project, and Mr. Rolnick wants to ensure that both families are on board so that it's a successful project, but he can't get Mr. Pham or Mrs. Pham to come in. One of his concerns is that he's not making a family connection with his student. So, what are some of the things that we can do to get parents involved and participating in what we do at school? One big problem seems to be that if you live in a community like I do, which is a small rural community, some parents have grown up here, have attended school here, and they may not have positive experiences, which then makes it very hard for them to want to come back into the school when their children are there themselves. I believe that Mr. and Mrs. Pham probably feel inferior and unwelcome in the school. They attended that school when they were younger, and during that time period, it wasn't a very successful culture of integrating students and families into the school, and a lot of those teachers are still there, so I'm sure they're very nervous about coming up to school. As a new teacher, when I was teaching in Garden City, which is an extremely diverse community, I was a white female teacher trying to understand my Hispanic parents in the community. At the time, I was engaged to my husband, who's also Hispanic, and so he had lots of insights to offer, which were really surprising to me, and also helped me understand a little bit about my husband's family in the process. I came to realize that we really do need to teach ourselves not to be judgmental of cultures that are different than our own. I was raised in that same community, and I felt like I had a great understanding. Many of my friends were Hispanic, but when it came to being a parent of those students, it was totally different. One of the things I can remember that came up was we needed something signed at school, like a permission slip, and I had a student who was continually not bringing that paper back. And when I asked, he said, "I won't see my mom until Saturday." And I said, "Why won't you see your mom until Saturday?" And he said, "Because she works." And I said, "So who's taking care of you at home?" And basically, I learned that he takes care of his younger siblings at home, and he was a 6th grader. So when they get home from school, there was already food prepared for them, and it was kind of up to them to keep each other safe, make sure that they do homework, and then they would see their parents on the weekend, because their parents both worked shift work at one of the beef packing plants. And so they went to work at 3 and came home at 11, and the students were already asleep, and kind of got themselves up and got ready for school the next day. That was a big thing for me to understand with the families that I worked with. And I also had the discussion with my husband because I was being judgmental. This was my first year of teaching. And I said, "Gosh, why can't these parents figure out that one of them needs to be home with their kids all the time?" And he also let me know that these people came to the United States without the same education that we have, and they're working any job that they can find to support their families, and sometimes that means they're not at home at the same time as their kids. So I always had that in the back of my mind as I was teaching in that school system. What else can educators do? So I believe one of the first things we need to do is to acknowledge and admit to parents that maybe we didn't do the right things in the past as far as culture and equity when at school. Times have really changed recently, and there has been a lot more acceptance going on of every kind of culture and every kind of situation and family makeup for that matter. And schools have tried to keep up with that and work with their teachers to be more professional in that. And so we need to acknowledge that to our families, that we're working on that to be better. The next thing we need to do is to go back and invite them back in after we've made those apologies and inform them of what we're doing. We need to invite them back to school and show them what some of the benefits would be of being involved in their child's education. The next thing is that we need to reflect on, what do we want our school to look like? Are we going to be a different kind of school that gives grace to our families and to our kids, and that when something goes wrong, that we again start over with our families? We want to be unforgiving for personal situations. And I think about this as being a team with parents. When you have parents that maybe don't want to be as involved or aren't doing a fantastic job of taking care of themselves or their kids, we need to think about how we can step in and help with some of those things. Not step on toes, but help make kids successful. Even when we have a student, I had a niece that was a student in the same school that I taught in, and there were many times that she would come to school and not have her reading log signed, and so I would do that for her before school started. And when we talk as teachers and think about what the personal situations are like at home, some of those things aren't the kids' fault. And so we need to be more understanding. I believe that the staff needs to know about barriers that go on in families, and we need to be good listeners to those things and be empathetic to what our families are dealing with. Every school needs professional development to help their teachers understand their families that are in their classroom. I think about this when I used to do professional development for school districts. We had tons of Burmese coming into one of our communities, and we had to do professional development with the teachers about why they behaved in such ways. For instance, when you would call home, you couldn't talk to a mom about what was going on with his or her student because the dad was the main dominant figure in the family, and so we would have to wait to get a hold of the dad, and then the dad would call us back. And when they came to school, it was mom and dad, never just mom. They also used to start fires within their house. They would cook that way in their house. And we even had to go into some of the communities and show them that that's not what we do, that fires have to be outside and how to use the appliances that are within their home. In my own experience, being accepting of whatever parents offered to me was always a successful way of bridging a gap. Many of our culturally diverse communities, they love to bring food to school. And of course, I love sharing in food, but there are many teachers that was not a thing for them. They would just either not take it or they would never eat it. And even if you choose not to eat it, do not do that in front of the kids, because that is something that is very disrespectful to them. And always accept it, because not accepting it is extremely disrespectful. And I've even learned that within my own family with my mother-in-law. So what are some ways that we can reach out to parents? This is probably one of the better things that I've learned throughout this class, are different ways to try and get parents involved at school. We can ask them to give insights about their student, ask them to share a story about their student. That helps us get to know them, but it also helps us to see what kind of background they all come from. Continue to share about their culture with their students even when they're at home, so that they know stuff about their past and their history that they can then come share at school. Ask parents to keep their family traditions alive, to continue to speak in their native language to them, to continue to read to them in their native language so that they're continuing to build that first language background and skill work. Almost every single person has a phone and has some kind of social media. If we have that at our schools, we need to ask parents to sign up and join those things so that they can stay informed, even if they don't want to come to school. Ask for them to volunteer to go on field trips with us. That would be such a great experience for our parents that come from diverse communities, because then they're learning something about what we do, and it's a fun, non-threatening environment for them. Do virtual parent-teacher conferences for those parents that aren't willing to come to school. We have the technology, and now everybody knows how to use the technology, so we need to use it in a way that's beneficial to our families. Anytime you serve food and provide childcare, you're going to get more parents to come. That's a huge factor. And then let the parents participate in something that you're doing at school with the kids. So we've done two things that have been really successful. One is we have an evening where parents can come in and go through all of the programs with their students that they would do in a day. So if we use Lexia to help with our intervention, we let the parents get on and try Lexia just like their students do, or take an accelerated reader test, or do a Mad Minute activity with the kids. So some of the things that the kids get to do, they can then teach their parents. Another one that we did last year, which was extremely successful, was we had went through and written a grant on roller skating, and our PE teacher spent 2 weeks showing the kids how to roller skate, and they did all kinds of fun activities. And so we got extra skates and invited the parents to come one evening to roller skate with their kids, and that was a huge success because they were sharing a shared experience from their past, and both of them loved it. So that's a little bit about how I think that maybe the teacher can get the parents a little bit more involved and get them to school and help them educate their student. Thank you.